Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Hi. I just walked from the Metrolink station. I was worried I would, I had to go to LA today for work, so I'm just a little out of breath. But hi, happy June, happy Pride, happy June Montalvo Area Community Council meeting. Thank you all for being here. I will be very short. I'm Carba Eckley. I'm the chair for the Montalvo Area Community Council. And we have a really nice agenda tonight. I'm particularly excited to introduce the first group, pair, Liz and David Montoya. I happened to see on social media your story, and it was harrowing, that's all I'll say, and I'm really excited to have you all here to share about it. It's CPR Awareness Month. It's super important that everyone know about CPR and how to give CPR, so without further ado, I will pass it off to you two to share your story, because I know you have to babysit the grandkids, so you gotta get out of here early.
Okay. Well, in saying that it's important, I think it's better to have an idea of what happened to us. So this was on December 2nd. It's a regular day. And David was very tired that morning when we woke up. No symptoms of anything, just tired. So we canceled our appointments for the day, and we decided just to stay home. I told him to sit down, just relax, so he got on his laptop, and I was sitting next to him. We're very in tune with each other, so I was sitting next to him. He's on his laptop. Then all of a sudden, his hands went to his side, and his head went back. I said, "Hey, David, what are you reading about?" I thought maybe politics or the stock market or something. He didn't answer me, so I got up and looked at him, and he was clearly unconscious. I thought he fainted, and so I did a few of those. "Are you okay?" His head went to the side. I said, "Oh, no, this is bad. He's struggling to breathe." So I immediately called 911, and once she calmed me down, she was great. She said, "Stop yelling at me. Calm down." She said, "We got to get him on the floor, and we got to start CPR." Got him off the sofa on third tray. I was able to get him down, and she says, "Okay, let's start CPR." I had only watched one video, or it was a TV show on CPR. It was 30 minutes. It was a long time ago, but I knew what to do still. It was in my head. I didn't know the details, but I knew what to do. So she said, "Okay, let's get going." So I started the CPR. I got to the third round of the chest compressions. You're doing that. I'm very fortunate that I didn't know he was basically dead. He wasn't breathing. His heart was not beating. I just thought I was going to just keep going and doing that. So I said, "Is anybody going to show up here? I'm getting really tired of doing this." And my arms were getting, really shaky. They showed up right away, the fire department. I let them in. We had over a dozen people, and well, you don't remember anything. There was over a dozen people there, officers and the firefighters, and they're all paramedics. And they're like a pit crew. They each do their own thing, and I didn't know he was dead. Basically, they said, "You need to call somebody over. You can't be alone." And I said, "Why?" "Is his heart beating?" They said, "No." "Is he breathing?" He said, "No." "Is he alive?" He said, "We're working on him." So after shocking him 6 times, he started to come to a little bit. He was whisked off. He had a widowmaker, so he was blocked 99%. He wasn't getting any blood. But I didn't know all the details and importance of CPR. So basically what I'm doing with the chest compressions, so he's not breathing, so there's not oxygen coming in. There's still blood in the heart. I'm manually pushing it out so it goes to the brain. The brain starts to die within minutes. I'm glad I didn't know that at the time, but at the same time, I wish I was more prepared. They were able to get him back, and they put a stent in. And I said, wow, if I didn't do anything, he'd be gone, And this is my best friend, my husband for 47 years, a grandpa, a father, an uncle, all that stuff. And it was just really scary. But what I tell people, it would have been terrifying if I didn't know what to do. Because the stats, it's very low making it. If you're 10% only, make it. And that's with bystander CPR. So, and I was a bystander. And if I hadn't been there, it wasn't like in the movies where you grab your arm and something hurts. Nothing. It was silent. So if I hadn't been sitting next to him, had I been out gardening, had I been upstairs, that would have been it. But I was able to do that CPR, and they said that's why he made it, because I was able to do that and sustain him until the paramedics swooped in and took over. I mean, they're really heroes.
Yeah.
Kind of get goosebumps talking about it again. But it was scary. But just think, if I didn't know what to do. But what I want people to do is go to cpr.heart.org, and they list all the classes that you can take in person, online. They explain the whole process, and we just got to get it done and know it. You don't know who you're going to be helping. And there's a Good Samaritan law, too, by the way, because I always think, people think, what if I hurt somebody? What if I get sued because I didn't do it right? No, you're fully protected. You got to step in. You could be saving a loved one, your child, somebody else's loved one.
Really, what you're trying to do is buy them time in order for the first responders to get there. And that's what Lizzie did for me. And I'm so glad that she knew what to do and acted. I'm here today because of that. Otherwise, as she said, I would not be here. You know, it was great to meet the Ventura Fire Department. We wanted to see them and thank them in person, at least the crew who came to the house. But we were given the opportunity and invited to attend the awards ceremony back on April 25th. And not only did we get to meet the entire crew and get pictures with them and thank them in person, but I think what the most meaningful for the two of us was we had other firefighters come up to us and thank us for being there, because they said, we never get to see survivors. We don't know what happens to them. And you coming means the world to us. So thank you for coming. So it was really great to meet them.
It
And,
was
you know,
very emotional. It was very healing.
You know,
It was
along
very
with the
healing.
fire department, you know, our police department,
Yeah,
you know,
they were all there.
all there, perhaps a little underappreciated, which, you know, most times they are. But I will tell you, we are here today as proponents of everybody, advocates for people learning CPR.
Right.
It's not difficult. It just takes a few minutes of your time, and you never know when you'll be called on to assist somebody. So I'm glad Lizzie did, and that's really our story. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank
Any
you.
questions, or
Any questions?
pretty sure?
Oh, there's also a podcast. I think that's what Carbasol is, the podcast.
Ventura Forward.
Ventura Voices.
Ventura Voices, yes.
Yeah, and you can watch it, and it gives a lot of the medical details and everything. I mean, the stats and all that. So you can go to that as well.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We always try and beat the fire department. And it sounds like they beat us to it, so it's probably a good thing. Yeah, great story, and I echo that 1,000%. We could definitely tell when we show up somebody who started the process and the likelihood that the person's going to live through that just by a little basic knowledge. So couldn't echo that more. I don't know if anyone else got allergies from that story, but I did. So I'm Craig Kelly. Assistant Chief Kane couldn't be here, but I'm excited to be here because I'm actually your district sergeant. So I'm temporarily assigned to our patrol task force, but I still kept this district, and I went to one of your meetings at one of your homes recently, and that was fun to meet everybody. But I went through, and did everyone get one of these? You should have. They're on the back table if you don't. And it's our crime stats. So you are used to going through these, I'm sure. And the way that I do it, and I'll do it differently if you have any questions or want me to change it, is I look at these and I think to myself, what is it here that I would want to know that would be of my safety concern if I lived in this neighborhood? And that's how I apply what we talk about. So as I look at these things, a lot of things can sound scary, like weapons laws violations and things of that. So let me break them down for you so you have a good understanding of what's actually impacting your neighborhood and where you're living. So as I looked through this, I noticed that one of the burglary, breaking and enter, that one case, definitely caught my attention, and that was on Wallaby. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna look more into this. And somebody actually at 2 a.m. kicked in this person's front door, but didn't go in the house. It's kind of strange. So I looked up the address, did some more research, and found out that it was the second time that that had happened, where somebody who's looks the same went and kicked in the kicked in the door a second time in a 2-month period. So it seems like it's isolated that house, and we're working with that resident. But we did do a canvass of the neighborhood and the points of entry and exit from that neighborhood and got some ring footage that showed a white SUV. Unfortunately, 2 a.m., can't really tell beyond that, and we have tried to figure out what kind of car that is. But something, no, if you live near Wallaby, I don't think you need to worry about your door getting kicked in. But if you see a car at 2 a.m. matching that description that's occupied and maybe just parked in the area, give us a call, because we're out there all night, right? So we're happy to help. 11 drug offenses. I looked all those up. Turns out 10 of them were self-initiated by us. So officers out proactively looking for people that look like they're doing something they shouldn't and end up doing a drug-related arrest as a result. But all 11 of those the people were arrested. So one was a result of a call for service on Victoria. The rest were all by us proactively patrolling, which I'm kind of proud of that, of our guys for that. That's pretty impressive. And then 17 of those 27 thefts, 17 are shoplifts, and all of the rest are a license plate or bikes. So there's something that you could do by spreading knowledge that will help us, and that's registering your bike. So a lot of people will report to us their bike stolen, and it's a black Cannondale 26-inch rims, and all of a sudden, now I say that, you'll go out there and be like, how's every bike here a black Cannondale with 26-inch rims, right? So we need those serial numbers. I brought some little, sorry, you're not supposed to say when you're public speaking. It doesn't sound. I brought a bunch of these. They're on the back counter. If you could help us spread the word, you can just scan to enter the bike serial number and stuff. So if you ever become a victim, which hopefully you don't, but it's happening, you can also fill out the back, and we'll have that information automatically in our system. So if we stop somebody, or when we stop people with bikes and we think they're doing something they shouldn't, we run those serial numbers. Most of the time they don't come back as being stolen. In this case, it would if it was yours, and we'd be able to return it to you, or at least hold the person accountable for that. Let's see here. The other thing that we have is 3 weapons arrests. So it says 3 weapons violations. All of them are arrests that were conducted by us. We had a pepper spray, a concealed knife, and then one was a firearm involving drugs. But they were all self-initiated stops by our guys and girls out there proactively doing enforcement. So another thing that I'm pretty proud of, and that's keeping your neighborhood safe. But if we look back, they're in your neighborhoods to begin with, so we need to be really proactive about preventing that, and that's where obviously everyone here can come into play by being our eyes and ears on the street. Please never be afraid of calling our 911 if it's an emergency, or our non-emergency number, which I think most of you have, but you could look it up. And the most important thing to us isn't just what's happening, but she mentioned, the dispatcher calmed me down. The first thing we ask is where, right? So knowing where you are and moving forward from there to a good description and what direction the person left in. So if we're in this neighborhood, the freeway's almost always south and the mountains are always north. And I still, 26 years of being a cop and a pilot, not for 26 years a pilot, that's kind of new and scary, but I still do never eat shredded wheat. That's how I have to still remember it. So I learned that in 3rd grade. But as I look through this, there is a few other things that I would like to just inform you all about, because as I review these things, it's like, what are the takeaways that we could do to have a positive impact on the community to hopefully prevent some of these things? And at the top of that is, I did notice in looking at this, the fraud offenses, that there was some blackmail and some extortion. So one of those, and this is where having good conversations with our youth come into play, social media and dating apps get primarily our young people in a lot of trouble, where they might send some indecent photos that then get used against them. So that's one of these. And our school resource officers are always trying to educate the youth in our schools to be wise with their phones. And once you send a picture out into the internet, it is maybe out there forever. We have some tools where we can have them removed, but we have to know about them. So we really strive to educate our youth, anyone with kids or friends. I feel as though my experience working in our special victims unit, and our school resource program, which investigates these types of things, They're hard conversations to have, but they're invaluable for the safety of our kids. That pressure sometimes gets our kids to take steps in directions that they can't come back from, right? So, and also, one of these, we had an elderly victim who gave over $95,000 in a scam. And I was thinking, what should I tell all of you? And it's, if you have someone that's the sweet elderly person on your street, being their kind of voice. And hey, if you ever have somebody calling you saying you have a warrant for your arrest for whatever made up thing and you need to send this many gift cards or send this much money, like, we are never the FBI. It's not going to, you name it, never going to happen where we're calling you and saying those types of things. It's going to be, if you're actually wanted, come turn yourself in, or we're going to come find you, right? So sometimes just having the ability to have someone like you all who hear of these things to have the foresight to just call us and calm them down before they take any action can sometimes help prevent those things, because, I mean, for some people, that's, for me, that's, it can be a huge impact, right? And then the other thing would be checking our credit cards. So checking that statement, I started becoming more diligent with it when I got married and started sharing my credit card with my wife. So I'm like, what's this purchase? What's this purchase? Well, I didn't buy those things. And it turns out I've been victimized, I know it's 3 times, but I don't know the exact timeline, probably in the last 2 years, where they're little tiny purchases, little ones that I don't notice, and I've just been paying them. And when we talk together about purchases, then we know that it's fraud and we report it. It's a super easy process. You just call the police and or just the credit card company if it's, you know, I had one where it was all being used in, my brain turned off, San Francisco. And I'm not going to call my local police department to report that there. So I did a credit card company. They took care of everything from there, gave me my money back. But it got me thinking, how much am I spending that I'm not the one buying it? So just something to always be thinking about when you pay that credit card or use your debit card. And keep in mind, it's always easier to get your money back from the credit card company than the debit card, as long as, you know, it doesn't lead to more debt. But yeah, that's your money, and they'll investigate it and they'll give you your money back. But in my experience, it takes a little bit longer, and you don't always have immediate access to it to pay bills. Versus a credit card, it could be through the roof beyond any amount of money that we have, and it's like, shut that thing down. I didn't do that. So just something to think about. And I also want to bring up another thing, and that's, do I have time? E-bikes, yes. Yeah, e-bikes. So what are the opinions on those? Are we fans? Exactly. It's how you're riding them, right? So I want kids to go out and, you know, the movie Sandlot, I want them to go out and have fun. In some instances, it's like they're little terrorists. And we're experiencing that to where they won't even let people use the pool at Kimball Park, and they act like bullies. It's funny because in the beginning of my career, when I looked a lot younger than I did now, I'd talk to like big, mean-looking people, and they'd respect me, and I can't get a 14-year-old sometimes to listen. But right now, I stepped away from it to come here. We have all of our patrol task force, our motor unit, and our school resources officer at Kimball Park doing a 2-part operation. One is the school resource officers are there with our command post to educate parents, and there's just people in and out of there when I left, and kids who are on the bikes if they're willing to talk to us. And then we have our motor cops, a drone, and all of my guys out there doing enforcement. They already gotten a chase of one of them on one of those high-speed, basically dirt bikes that are electric, so they're even faster and more torquey than a regular bike, and ended up catching him. So I put these out there. They're in Spanish and English. Super important, usually, in my experience, parents being educated on these things are what can help prevent accidents from happening. And it's not just that they're in some cases, terrorizing people in the community, but they're also getting hit by cars and crashing and getting really injured. And if they're following these rules, then they can have some of them, as long as they're not full-blown dirt bikes at 14 years old, and they can have fun if they're following the rules. That's what we want for them. We want them to be outside doing those things, but we want them to do that responsibly. So I think that covers everything that was on the agenda.
Will you repeat the question once we get it so we can report it on?
Absolutely. don't make the question too long so I get it right. A lot of pressure.
Also, yeah, no, there's adults that are riding those, and one just flew through the stop sign. It's like there's some kind of power. And I'm at the top of Sunridge and Crowley. You guys, we've had all kinds of things in there. You guys are so responsive.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And what I try to do with the kids is, hey, what's the newest rules for you guys? They come over, they tell me, so that you're not yelling at them. You're having some kind of communication with them. It's good.
So she's talking about, if I think everyone here heard it, but about adults also being sometimes a problem running the stop signs and red lights and things. And we're not just focusing on kids. We have the school resource officers there because it's primarily kids at that location, and we've gotten over 170 calls for service so far in the last year just at that location with them. So that's our response to that. But you're 100% right, and we are constantly doing enforcement and education on our adult population too. We want people to use it and have fun on them, but responsibly, just like in any other scenario. So when they cross that line, regardless of their age or their intentions, then that's where we definitely try to step in. But they are one of the most complained about things that are occurring right now, particularly at that area. If I have any time, I could just briefly talk about our strategic plan, or else I can wait after if anyone has any questions about that. I have time? Okay, so if you haven't seen this, our chief, I'm sure you've met him, David Dickey, he's pretty smart. So a lot of times these will be the size of the Bible over there, and it's like, where do we find the time to read this and study it? He made it so simple, and he made it based on what our input was and yours. So it's really just boiled down to 3 main things that focus around our mission, values, and our purpose. And we sent out a flyer of mailers to, hopefully all of you got one, you should have. And based on our responses, we helped build this around that. And the number 1 and 2 things complained about our city is 1, things that affect our quality of life, particularly homelessness and vagrancy. And 2, case in point, we want you there as fast as possible when we call for emergencies. Everyone seems to be understanding that if it's not emergency, they might have to wait a few minutes. And we still have the goal of always being there in 30 minutes or less, but we want to be to the big emergencies in 5 minutes or less. So we're focusing a lot of our attention on that. And then the third one's simple. Anything outside of that, when you call us, we're going to handle it professionally and try and solve your problem to the best of our ability within the law. So it couldn't be more simple, and I'm temporarily in our patrol task force and working with everyone in our community to try and handle these issues as responsibly as we can, and impacting that will also help our response times and vice versa. So we're trying to come up with a lot of creative solutions that are not only focused on holding people accountable, but also trying to get them into the right services, resources, housing, and things that can not be barriers to their behaviors, and then try and get them through those behaviors and into these services that can help them. So the people on my team are very good at being cops, and their acumen's exceptional, but they also have big hearts, and they're balancing that to the best of their ability, because we do have some people that we just have to deal with until they're willing to accept services and take that off ramp, so to speak. So I'm excited about this strategic plan. No one said anything. That's the second time I said It's embarrassing. But we are, third time. We're going to be sticking this. It's online if you want to read it at all. Any feedback, I'll stick around. I don't have anywhere to be other than here. So I would love to. I think my time was up. No, what's your question?
My mom went to court, long story short, and she saw people who had made it with e-bikes to court. So they've already been educated, they've already all the things, and she said the consequences were minimal. It felt like a slap on the wrist. So what can we do as a city to increase the fees or the consequences to help get this to go away?
So the question was, the statement was her mother went to court and saw that the penalties for e-bike violations are very minimal. And what can we do as a community, and I assume as a police department, to address that? 1, educate ourselves on all laws, Some of them are worded very tricky, like when we went to the original Prop 47, things that were called the Safe and Clean Neighborhood Acts, and then if you read it, it really doesn't have much to do with that. But also, we're trying to be creative for those people who just refuse to follow the rules. So we used to just take these e-bikes to the police department, and then a parent would have to come meet with us and get it out. Well, then we started doing more research, and we realized that most of these are vehicles. So we tow them. Then you have to pay the tow fees, you have to pay our fees at the police station, and you have to have an adult to get it, and you have to have that interaction with us, and that ends up being over $700. So on top of the fines that you're already experiencing. And I always want to stress, because I don't know who's listening, that we're not just doing that for anybody, right? It's progressive discipline, so to speak, and we evaluate the situation. That's reserved for these people that I think you're referring to, that are creating the havoc and problems and traffic issues and misbehaving on these things. And we're trying to do that as proactively as possible. Then we're also taking the bike, and it's very hard for them to get it back in some instances. It would be nice if we could get to a point where we could evaluate other means, which I don't want to put the cart before the horse and say what I'm thinking, but we're constantly trying to think of other ways to address it more effectively and efficiently. So we're all ears. Are the e-bikes considered motorcycles for a license? And my answer is sometimes. So on this that's back there, it actually breaks down the frequently asked questions. Is there an age requirement? Do I need a license? Do I need to wear a helmet? How fast can I go? And it's for class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. So there's like your pedal assist ones that you'll see mountain bikers use that don't really go that fast, and you got to work really hard still. And then there's ones that have pedals and zoom real quick, and you don't even have to pedal. And then there's some that just look like motorcycles, right? So those are different classes, and they have different requirements and speed requirements for most of them. It also depends where you're riding them. So you, in most instances, you don't need a driver's license for them. But that's something that maybe we could work on with legislation down the road, because unfortunately legislation is usually reactive to what we're experiencing. I did not expect 10 years ago, or at the start of my career, quarter century ago, that I would be talking about e-bikes. Right? And so how do we catch up to that time to see how to handle it efficiently? And we have to adjust and adapt too, which are other things we're looking into, because they get away from me almost every time. It's mostly our motorcycle cops who have to try to catch them, because I'm in a car and they zip through all these areas that I can't turn around. So we're adjusting and taking other considerations into effect to how we can equip that's what we're looking into for our motorcycle cops. So we just got to train them well. So right. So thank you. I'll hang out.
Awesome. Thank you, Officer Kelly. I am genuinely devastated to hear, though, that a senior neighbor of ours was scammed $95,000. And so I definitely hope that she was able to recover all of that. Before we transition to the next speaker, and unfortunately, at the very last minute, Councilmember Duran said that he couldn't make it tonight, which is why we were able to get several more minutes and questions from Officer Kelly. But before we transition to the next agenda item, I do want to make sure that everyone does have access to the non-emergency line for Ventura Police. So I'll just quickly read that, and you can write it down if you don't have it already saved in your phone. Highly recommend. So the non-emergency line is 805-650-8010. And again, that's 805-650-8010. So save that if you need it, use it, otherwise call 911. And with that, we can transition to our next speaker. We have the pleasure of having Jeff Lambert here from the Housing Division from the City of Ventura to chat about all things housing in our district. So thank you.
Just one clarity, we're a separate entity from the city. It's okay. People get confused. I had to explain it to Officer Kelly just a few minutes ago because he didn't know either, and he's known me for 15 years, so it happens. So I'm happy to be here. Jeff Lambert. I'm the CEO of Ventura Housing. If you don't know Ventura Housing, we have been known since 1949 as the housing authority of the city of San Buenaventura. And I chose to change the name so I could say it easier. So that's our new name and new branding, and I'm showing you the new branding on my shirt today. I wanted to do a couple things. One, just give you a little bit overview of who we are as Ventura Housing, because most people don't really know who we are, and we're trying to reintroduce ourselves to the community. But also then I want to talk about 2 projects that we have that are near to your neighborhood and give you an update on where they are, and then be happy to take questions. But as I hinted before, well, first of all, I want to congratulate both of you. That was a great story. I was dead for a few minutes 13 years ago in a similar situation and was brought back to life. So I understand what you're going through. So I appreciate that. And we all could learn to take care better of each other. So Ventura Housing has been around. It was created by the City Council in 1949. I'm not going to go give you a lot of history because I could be here for a long time. But so we've been around here for 76 years. And it's interesting, we were created about the same time that the 101 freeway was built through Ventura, and it displaced what a community called Tortilla Flats. If you know of that community in downtown Ventura, we were created about the same time. In fact, many of those folks who were displaced by the freeway in Tortilla Flats moved into what's now called Westview Village, which is our Westview Village community of affordable housing that we started building about the same time that those families were displaced. Unrelated, just happened to be at the same time, but we actually became a place for those families to go that didn't have another place to go when they were displaced by the creation of that freeway. So we've been around a long time. I think is the map up? I can't quite see the screen. Is that what's up on the screen? Hold on. Yes. So we've been around a long time. We have property all over the city. So we own about 1,200 units across the city. We have a lot on the west side. That's sort of where we were founded. But we go all the way from the west side to Darling and Los Angeles Avenue in the Saticoy community, and all over the Midtown area as well. So we own a lot of property. We've been owning property and managing affordable housing in Ventura for a very long time. The other thing that we also do, and there's overlap, is we manage the Section 8 voucher program. And people have heard of Section 8 voucher probably. These are vouchers that we get from the federal government. We have almost 2,000 vouchers that are allocated to us from HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Those vouchers are used once you get called up on the list, you get a voucher. If you're eligible for that voucher, you can take it anywhere and find a landlord to go to move into. And what happens there is you pay 30% of your income to that rent, and we pay the landlord directly the balance of that rent. And so it's a great way for people who can't afford to live in Ventura to be able to afford to live in Ventura. The challenge is we get 2 things from the federal government. We get the number of vouchers, which I said is 1,987 vouchers, and then we get money to pay all those subsidies. Because we're in an expensive area, we don't get enough money to cover all the vouchers. So it's heartbreaking to know that even though we have an allocation for just under 2,000 vouchers, we only have about 1,650 actually working in Ventura, because we ran out of money before we could use the rest of them. There's been lots of advocacy in Washington to try to change that, but that's just the reality of what it is. So we struggle. We have about 9,000 people on our wait list. That's a lot of people on our wait list, and it's going to take a long time. Right now, we're housing people that are getting vouchers that have joined our list maybe in 15 years ago. So that's kind of how long it takes. And so that's not something we're proud of. It's just the structure of the system that we work in. So we've been trying to grow the pie and try to build more housing. Over the last 10 years, we've tried to expand the supply of affordable housing in the city of Ventura so we can try to house more people with other sources of income. And so the way it works now mostly is if we acquire property and get a project approved by the city, the way that we fund that is the city and the county have been very generous with money to us. But the big way we fund that is we get tax credits that we can make available to anybody that has a big tax burden, mostly large businesses or wealthy individuals, and they basically give us money in exchange for getting a tax credit for 15 years. So it's good for them, it's a revenue source for us, it's basically the private sector paying for affordable housing, which I like a lot, because it's everybody's challenge. So we've built many projects over the years, and I want to talk a little bit about the two most recent projects one that we've completed and one that we're about to start. And so you've heard of Valentine Road. I think we've come here a couple times and give you updates on Valentine Road. Does anybody not know where the former La Quinta Hotel was? As I've talked to police officers over the years, they remind me that that was a regular place that they were called for service at the La Quinta Hotel pretty regularly. So during COVID, the state used a lot of their federal money to try to find new ways of helping people avoid homelessness in the state of California. And at first they had something called Room Key, where they basically helped organizations buy hotels or long-term lease hotels and just make them available for housing immediately without really any renovations. In Ventura, that was the Vagabond Hotel in downtown Ventura on Thompson. And that's been really used as a transitional housing for those experiencing homelessness now since 2021. It's been a long time. And it was supposed to be temporary, but it's continued to move on. The state ultimately, after a couple years, turned that program into what they called Home Key. And that was intended to be permanent housing, not these transitional motel conversions. And we were lucky. We had made an offer to buy the La Quinta Hotel. During COVID, hotels were really struggling, and that particular hotel owner was not really interested in coming back as a hotel post-COVID, so they were open to an offer. We worked with the city and the county, and we made an offer to purchase that property. The city has given us about $13 million over the last several years to help with both of these projects that are next door to each other. The county has granted us about $5 million, loaned us another $5 million, which we've since paid off. And then we've put in some of our own money in, but we got the Home Key grant, which was a $32 million grant. And that allowed us to buy the property and begin the process of renovating it. We also got a tax credit investor, which gave us another $22 million. And I know this sounds like a big number, but we're a very transparent organization. It cost us $77 million to acquire and convert that property. And if you calculate that by 134 units, it's a lot of money per unit. But if you've been by that property and remember what it looked like before, we've really gutted that hotel. We went from about 144 hotel rooms with a couple manager units and some other sort of common areas, like they had a commercial laundry. We now have 134 units. We started moving people in about a year and a half ago into temporary quarters. What we basically did is we took one building and we helped people move from Vagabond into Valentine Road without any renovations. That was building B. It's the first building you see when you show up at the property. Then we started renovating the back two buildings, C and D, and then ultimately moved those folks into renovated units and then finished with buildings A and B. So right now it's 134 units. We reached 100% occupancy about 2 weeks ago. The day before we had our ribbon cutting on the 21st of May. There was a lot of pressure for staff to get to that number, and we got there with a lot of partners. One of the exciting things about this property is we have a very significant partner with Ventura County Behavioral Health. They subsidize 60 of those units. So 60 of the units they provide services to those folks that live there, but they also subsidize their rent. And that's an important part of helping this project work out. I will tell you one of the things that we did in this process. Originally, we were going to have 3 sort of categories of tenants. Those that they call chronically homeless. These are folks that have been homeless often or for a very long time. And then we were going to have about a second third that was going to be what we called literally homeless. These are folks who just became homeless, but they maybe don't have a chronic condition of being homeless. And then the third was going to be people who are at risk of being homeless. They're housed today, but they could very well be unhoused in very short order. when we started housing people, we realized the biggest need in Ventura to really have an impact on moving people from the street into housing was to prioritize the highest need population. So everybody that lives at Valentine Road right now are they either were chronically homeless or literally homeless. Unfortunately, we're not helping people avoid being homeless because the need for those that are actually homeless was very high. We're part of the solution. We're not the only solution, but you've probably all seen the paper that the unhoused population in Ventura has dropped by 23% over 3 years and 12% just from last year to this year. That's because we've found opportunities for these folks to find a place to live and perhaps get their life back together. I will say one of the things that we've learned with most of the chronic folks that are living there is these are folks that they're not going to magically find a way to full employment and leave subsidy. Because they're the most needy, vulnerable homeless folks, they're probably going to be here for the rest of their lives. This is permanent supportive housing. As long as they follow the rules and pay their rent, even if it's a small amount of the total rent cost, they can stay there. One of the other things we've done in partnership with the city is the city got a $12 million grant, and it was specifically to remove those that are living in encampments. And in particular, the encampments in the Santa Clara River. Our timing was well because the city was able to get that grant and use that grant to pay for some of the folks living at Valentine Road. So we have about 30 households there, mostly individuals, but we have a couple of toddlers that lived there that literally came from the Santa Clara River, temporarily housed at Motel 6 on Harbor, and are now living at Valentine Road. The vast majority, and I know there are probably some concerns about maybe impacts on the neighborhood. I'm happy to hear those questions and talk about that. I will tell you the vast majority, if not every darn person that lives there today, they are trying to get their life together, and they're working really hard. Our challenge has been, and Craig and I talked about this later, we're going to talk about it again tomorrow. Sometimes the visitors to the folks living there are the problem. And we're really working to try to continue to minimize that impact, because that's probably what's impacting what you see on Victoria and around the 101, and that's important to us. But I will tell you, we have heavily staffed the property. We have 4 property managers on site, 2 that live there. Unfortunately, one of them got reassigned, so we're about to fill the second slot. So we'll have 2 people that live there full time. That's their home. And actually, the first person that we moved in as a resident manager had a 7-year-old son. She loved living there. And then we have 4 property managers, 2 that are there 7 days a week, and the others are there Monday through Friday. And then we have 4 caseworkers, and these are folks that help folks find resources for additional revenue, get signed up for Medicare if they don't have it, get attached to behavioral health for services or addiction services, or helping them just have a good quality of life. We have lots of classes and art classes and addiction classes and things like that to give people a chance to have a good quality of life. But we have 4 other staff that's what they do. We have an on-site maintenance guy on site, and then behavioral health, because they're serving many of these folks living there. They have 2 staff on site. So it's a pretty heavy staffed site. We have a ton of people coming and going to help support the folks that are living there. But we continue to try to help make sure that they have a good quality of life, but they're also not impacting the neighborhood, and I'm happy to talk about that in a minute. So that's Valentine Road. Very proud of this project and very excited that we've reached the point where we have a full occupancy. We had a ribbon cutting event a couple weeks ago, and really thrilled to see that property completed and be part of the solution for addressing unhoused folks in the county of Ventura, but particularly in the city of Ventura. And I should say the priority for everybody moving into this property are people that have a relationship with the city of Ventura. When you're homeless, it's hard to define what that means, but everybody has to have a connection to Ventura. We're not bringing people in that come from Thousand Oaks. We're not helping Thousand Oaks move their problem away from Thousand Oaks. We really are supporting the folks that live in Ventura. So as if that wasn't enough, when we bought the La Quinta Hotel, we bought an empty lot next door. So when you drive past the Shell station on the corner, turn into our property, there's an empty lot. It's a 0.6 acre lot. It came with the hotel. Nothing's been on it. So we decided to pursue a development on that site as well. And I know Kyler Carlson on our staff has come to you a few months ago, maybe a year ago. It's been a while. Just to present that project to you. It's 3 stories. It's a 33-unit property. It will also be for those formerly experiencing homelessness. About 2/3 of the units will be for the rest of the encampment folks that the city helped move out of the Santa Clara River. We have our planning approvals. Under state law, 100% affordable projects don't require public hearings anymore, so that was approved in 3 months late last year. We're about to go into plan check later probably this month or early next month, which means we're going to start the building process. I don't expect us to come out of the ground until the spring of 2027, but we're really proud of this project. What's different about this project compared to Valentine Road is these are 1 bedrooms primarily. There's a couple of 2 bedrooms. So we're able to house a different family size than we are at Valentine Road. What's also different about this site is we're building in a really nice community center and literally a rooftop garden area. And that community center is on the back side of the new project, basically facing Valentine Road, because we're creating a community there. And when you convert a hotel, it's hard to find room to do a community center. So we don't have a community room in Valentine Road other than the lobby space, which is now our gathering space. But these units will be working well together. We hope if we can start construction on time in the spring of 2027, we'll be opening by the fall of 2028. And I think we're showing pictures on the screen of that project. And we're really excited about that as well, and moving that property forward. We've worked closely with our neighbors, the industrial neighbors, the folks at Salzers, even with their vacant property across the street, to try to be a good neighbor. But I also know that we are now housing 134 people that were spread all over Ventura. And now they're all in one location, not far from your neighborhood. And so I'd love to hear your experience about whether you feel any different because those units are there, because I want to know what we can do to help, working with PD to make sure that we address the issues. I will say what I said at the beginning. Our residents at Valentine Road are people that are trying to change their lives. They're really, when I go there every day, it's a joy. I was at the Humane Society, Ventura County Humane Society had their annual event a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know it, but one of our residents from Valentine Road was there to tell her story. She was a middle-aged woman. I shouldn't say that, I'm middle-aged, but she was probably in her early 60s. She had lived in her car. She had health issues. She lost her home. She had lived in her car for 2 years. She had a Chihuahua and a couple cats. She just happened to go to Humane Society because of her pets. And they had a person there who said, I think there's housing for you at Vagabond. She got housed at Vagabond, started to get services, and because she was housed at Vagabond, she had a priority to come to Valentine Road, and she's as happy as she can be at Valentine Road. And we've changed her life. And I try not to cry. I try not to do that. But the reality is we have changed lives there. And it doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. And it doesn't mean that we have some folks that show up there because they're friends there or they think they can get some benefits by being there. But we're really focused on making sure that it's a safe place to be and that people coming and going are respecting our neighborhood around, on both sides of the freeway. And so I'd love to maybe stop talking and open it up to questions or comments from all of you. Thank you. If you have.
I had some questions from before, if you'll repeat. Do the people there have to pay anything to live there? Will they ever get jobs?
Yes, most have to pay something. They pay 30% of their income towards rent. Now, if they have almost no income, they're not really set up for Social Security or any kind of disability income, they might not pay much. They have to pay a minimum of $50. And sometimes if they're coming from a very destitute situation, there might be a nonprofit provider that's helping them pay that $50. But the minimum rent there is about $340, which is about a third of what you'd make if you had basic disability coverage of about $1,100 a month. And so that's typically what people pay, but they pay based on their income. Those that can will we're working to try to give them opportunities. We had it's called the WOW van. It's the Workforce Investment Board has this new WOW van, and it's really a mobile computer room, and there's 12 stations in there, and people can search for jobs and all that. And that we got several people actively in there getting excited about the idea of having a job. I will tell you, I think the folks that are most likely to find jobs and maybe increase their income and no longer need the subsidy to live at Valentine Road are the people coming from the river bottom. It tends to be a younger population. They're more able-bodied, but we have a lot of elderly folks there that have spent decades living on the street. There is a family, Shiloh and his wife, Crystal, and their 2-year-old daughter, Victoria. Shiloh lived in the Santa Clara River for 20 years. Crystal lived in multiple places homeless for 20 years. They met, they had Victoria. They said that she was conceived under the Victoria Bridge, but that's not why they called her Victoria. But they now live there. And they're living in a studio apartment, but the joy in their family is that Shiloh is very clear that he's going to find his way back to normalcy, not needing a subsidy. So there's a lot more motivation with that population. But a lot of the folks that we brought in that really came from that have been homeless for decades and have struggled with mental illness and other substance abuses are probably there for their lifetime. It's because it's permanent supportive housing for them. Yeah.
Requirements for drug testing?
No, it's what they call low barrier housing. That's part of the funding requirement under Home Key, that big $32 million grant we had. So there's no barriers to those that do drugs. We, though, on site, if there's any drug activities happen on site, that's when we are calling our friends at Ventura PD. We can evict people if they're not because they're doing drugs, but because they're impacting their neighbors by doing drugs. So that's important to us. One of the clear, and I don't think I mentioned this, each person there is under a lease. They sign a lease when they arrive. Whether they're paying a lot of rent or not, they're signing a lease. The lease has expectations for behavior. And if their behavior is impacting the quality of life of neighbors, whatever is causing that, that's an opportunity for us to give them a lease violation and ultimately evict them. We're not in the business of evicting people because we're a houser, but we will evict people if they understand, if they continue to create sort of havoc with their neighbors. And we have a couple challenges. We have evicted a couple. We've had a couple people move in who should never have been placed in an independent living. They really need to be in more of a care facility. So we've had a little bit of churn, but for the most part right now, we're in a pretty stable environment. There's not a wait list. So most of our housing has a wait list. The way it works here, because of the funding source, they're all referred to us from what's called the continuum of care. So it's the countywide continuum of care. They have a coordinated entry system. It's a great system. When we have an available unit, any social worker that's working with somebody who might be eligible, they present them in their monthly continuum of care presentation meeting, and they decide who's the most appropriate to come to Valentine Road. So it's all by referral based on caseworkers. And one of the requirements we have, say, whole person care is referring somebody to us. If we house them, we require whole person care to stay with that person for 12 months. It's a really long, soft turnover from their caseworker at home person care to ours. So they have sort of double support for that first 12 months to give them the best chance of success. But it's a referral system only. There's no waiting list for this particular property.
So it is currently 100% homeless?
Yes.
Previously homeless?
It's one. There's all kinds of words for it. These are folks who have experienced homelessness in one way or the other. Most of our folks that live there, well, all of them are either chronically homeless or literally homeless. So there's nobody there that was ever at risk of homeless. They've already kind of crossed that line into homelessness.
What's the plan when the grant runs out?
Is
there a grant that's funding all of this?
No, we have an operational budget. that's paying for all this. We have a budget. That's what happens with these. We have an investor. Once they actually exit at 15 years, we have a first right of refusal. We manage the property, but it's part of a limited partnership. But once the investor leaves, we have first right of refusal, and we never let a property go. But we have an operational budget that ensures that this property will survive financially for the long term. The restriction on the property is 55 years of affordability. Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Happy to take any other questions if people, yeah.
Jeff, isn't the eviction process pretty costly, and where do you guys get the funds to do all that?
Well, it is costly, but that's why we take seriously the process of violations. The more paperwork we have, and the more patience we have to build a case, the faster the eviction process is. And we have an attorney's office. We used to have an in-house counsel, in-house attorney who wasn't particularly capable, and we've now hired a firm out of Santa Barbara who has a staff that are specialized in this. And it's the cost of doing business. We don't do a lot of evictions. We probably do the actual where the sheriff comes and evicts somebody maybe 4 times a year across 1,200 units. We don't do a lot of them. It is lengthy, but we have on-site property managers. Most of that work is happening by our staff that are already on board. Our attorneys come in to sort of review the work here and there, but most of the work is happened by staff that are already being paid by the housing authority. Yeah.
And I hate to ask this question. I understand the homeless situation, the 3 categories.
Yeah.
I think what's concerning to me is, do you have a number, do you have an idea of how many of these families or single individuals are dependent on drugs or some sort of substance? And you have 4, you have 4 property managers. Who keeps it on?
Yeah.
Having an addiction to anything is very trying for anyone.
Yeah.
Whether it's alcohol or
Yeah.
drugs. So I'm just concerned, and I know from my own experience, when I see a homeless, and this is back in the day, I used to have like food or fruits from the garden, and they weren't interested or had vouchers to Oxstar to get meals. None of those folks really wanted to accept the voucher to get a free meal. They were really more interested in funds to get whatever kind of beer or whatever they were on.
Well, and I will say I don't have statistics because we don't track who has use of alcohol or drugs and who doesn't, because it's not a factor for us. It's a low barrier. But I will tell you, we have a lot of services. We have Food Share come once a month, and everybody in that building comes out for Food Share. They are really trying to sort of find a path forward. One of the things that I'm really excited about is a story that I've told a lot since last Thanksgiving. So we just started moving people in permanent housing in the summer of last year. So by Thanksgiving, there were maybe 60 people living there, and we were still under construction. We hadn't finished construction yet, and we're not on site on Thanksgiving. It's a holiday. We're off with our families, and the folks that lived there, they had a Thanksgiving potluck on their own. There were a couple ladies there that knocked on doors. They made food. They brought it to the courtyard, and that's happening almost every day there. We have barbecues. We have gardens. We actually have the sort of community garden patches that people can reserve. We have, I think, 10 that get divided in half, so they each get a half a garden plot to grow stuff. We're adding 10 more because the gardens love it. I mean, the residents love it, and it's actually therapeutic, and it gives them something to be productive about and kind of help change their lives. So there's a landscaping part in the back against Victoria that was sort of leftover land for us. And they actually started landscaping themselves and put in tables and chairs, and they're creating community there in this really magical way. And so part of it is they're looking out for each other. And they're coming to us if so-and-so is becoming a problem. And we take that very seriously. And we have 4 property managers, but we also have 4 caseworkers on site, plus the 2 from behavioral health. So we have 10 people on that site most days of the week. And we do. Yeah. Yeah, we do. Some people argued we had too many. Some people argue we had too much. Right now, it's working. And we have a good thing. And I don't know if anybody's driven over Victoria lately. and seen our murals. I meant to mention that earlier. I think there was a picture up here of the murals, but we ended up having a competition for murals on the site, and we actually picked a group of 7 young people in their 20s, and they spent the last 2 months putting those murals in place, and the residents were engaged and watching them and helping them and talking to them and excited about the process. And in fact, I was just telling somebody earlier, one of the residents said to the artist, they were all done, and she said, "I don't see a ladybug." And I really wish I had a ladybug, because that's my favorite thing. And they later added a ladybug, but they didn't tell her where it was. They made her find it, and she found it. So I mean, it's not perfect, for sure, but I can tell you very honestly, we had Mr. Softy come, the Mr. Softy ice cream truck, come last summer, and one of our ladies said, I said to her, "When's the last time Mr. Softy showed up at your front door?" And she said, "When's the last time I had a front door?" And so there's mothers and daughters there. There's a mother and son. They're both adults. There's a couple of toddlers there. It's a process, but I've talked to people in my profession around the country, and they've said, I've never seen a property build community as quickly as this one has built, because now many of them lived together at Vagabond. 40 of them lived together at Vagabond before they moved in. Another 30 lived together at Motel 6 before they moved in. So that part of it, and I was a little worried when the last group of Motel 6 people came that we were going to have these sort of factions of residents, but it's been completely the opposite. They barbecue together, they share food together, and it's been a great experience. But I am excited about this, yeah. And it's not because of the individual lives that are being affected every day. The impact on the city's homeless count and the continue to see those numbers drop means that collectively we're all doing something right to address a problem that's been the city's struggled with for years. I was at the city when the Patrol Task Force was created, and that was 12 years ago, Greg, whatever, something like that. And it was 2 or 3 officers, and now it's 8 or 10 officers, and it's a big deal. And so those officers are as much social workers as they are anything else. Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen them in action. They do what they need to do, but they also know how to refer folks to where the services are. And they know sometimes it might take 5 or 10 or 15 touches before somebody goes, you know what? Yeah. Yeah. And if you're writing stuff down, my cell number is 805-901-4229. And I can share it with you. You can put it out there. It's not a secret number. No, I've been a public servant my whole life, and that's my job, is to be available and take calls. I might ignore your call if I don't know your phone number, but I'll call you back. And so I want you to call if something bothers you, or you hear a rumor, or something bothers you about the site, because it's new to us. But I think I'm proud of the work we've done. We have a good team. That's why we're doubling down and adding the Pasteur Drive next door. But it will allow us to serve a different size of family with the 1 bedrooms and provide more opportunities for bringing people together in the community room. So, and that's important to us. Yeah. Tough question. No. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah. Yeah.
You alluded to or mentioned, though, that there might be or could be a potential problem with visitors considered being a magnet. So can you elaborate a little bit on what actual problems are you experiencing, and what is your project, what's Venture Housing doing to prevent any problems?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. I mean, it is. I'll be honest with you. It's a bigger challenge for us, because the residents are. I have no concern about the residents. Yeah, they might have some some of them might be doing drugs they shouldn't have, and we're working through that with them individually. But the residents are actually, they're there because they realize that this is a good deal for them, and they're going to try to do a good job and live their lives. Their visitors tend to sort of prey on them sometimes, or they think because they have a friend there, they can come and go as they please, and so that's been our biggest challenge. We do have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week security. We made that decision a long time ago. At first, it was just evenings and weekends when we weren't in the office. We made the decision to have them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're actually looking at sort of upping their level of security services so that they're doing a better job of that. That's the way we manage it, is make sure that if somebody's coming on the property, they're being allowed in by the resident that they're coming to visit. They're not just kind of coming through the gate, because we want the resident to bring them in to take responsibility for them. And what we tell our residents is your lease requires you to operate in good order on this property, and that includes your visitors. If your visitor acts out, you're going to lose your housing, because you're the one that's going to be evicted, not them. They don't live there. And so that has a lot to do with our residents themselves holding their friends accountable. It's a work in progress, Mark, honestly, but I think we've done a lot to try to make sure that those visitors know that they're on a pass and they don't have to be allowed on that property.
You're definitely a success.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Here, I have one final question for me, and that has to do with transportation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't even know what percentage of your tenants have transportation or not, but people need to get to the store. There's no sidewalk up underneath the 101 freeway overpass on Victoria.
Yeah.
And so, and there's no bus service that I'm aware of that goes over there, or is there?
There's a bus stop on Victoria right next to our property. In fact, we had to build an accessible ramp up to that bus stop from our parking lot as part of the city approvals. And that bus stop is very well used according to Gold Coast Transit. So that's the closest, and it's right there. I don't. Yeah, you might know better, but there is a service there. In fact, when we go to get tax credit in these kind of funding competitions, they're very competitive. There's usually 10 applicants for every 1 grant available, and things like accessibility, bike traffic, bus access, and all that is really important. I also didn't mention the property is 100% electric. We added solar on the roofs. We have a solar system that will allow us to fully power the property. It will be a net zero property, which means it's creating all the energy it needs to manage itself, which is a big deal. So it's a very environmentally sustainable property as well. Yes. Yep.
Jeff, one more question in regards to the leases.
Yes.
Do your tenants sign those leases just once?
They sign.
Like a renewable lease?
They sign the lease once, but we do an annual recertification. So every tenant gets recertified every year. We verify their income. If their income has changed, their rent goes up, and that happens every year. Yep.
And their behaviors?
Yes. Well, behaviors happen every day, but we do an annual recertification to ensure they still meet the eligibility requirements. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That truly is a great thing to bring to the community, and having that many people out of the Santa Clara River is a huge win for the community, for them, for the environment. A couple years ago, we had the auto fire in the Santa Clara River, so it is also, it prevents that. So huge, and Mark, it's the 21 bus line that's right there. I'm embarrassed. I just saw that the next agenda item I misspelled. So my apologies for whoever was reading the agenda. But next up, we have Amy Dugan from the county to chat about overdose prevention and harm reduction. So thank you, Amy.
I might just move this a little just so I can see the slides a tiny bit. No, that's okay. Thank you. I'm pretty accustomed to doing it with props, but thank you. Okay, I have a pretty loud voice, so hopefully you Does it? Okay, there we go. So thank you. This is kind of a sobering topic, but an important one. I'm talking. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. I'll just. Okay. There we go. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about overdose prevention this evening, specific to opioids, and also harm reduction. And it's a pretty important topic because overdose, fatal overdose, accidental poisoning is the leading cause of accidental death in our nation. And our community follows along with those statistics and is no different. We'll start with some, next slide, please. So this is a snapshot from our medical examiner of what we saw in the county in 2025. And I just want to bring your attention to the light blue and orange lines. So the light blue represents opioids. And of those, the orange are fentanyl. So you can see the vast majority of fatal overdoses from opioids were caused by fentanyl. And we'll get a little more into that in a moment. Next slide, please. This is from 2024, but it's the most recent heat map where we're able to show where fatal overdoses have happened in this county. So you can kind of identify Ventura and even the Montalvo area on that map. And it shows that, we definitely have had issues, and they unfortunately are continuing. Next slide, please. So just pretty briefly, most people are pretty familiar with what opioids are. They're very powerful painkillers. They're typically prescribed for chronic acute pain. And something very specific to opioids are how potent they are, how addictive they are. Less than 5 days of use can lead to dependence. So we're talking about some very powerful drugs. And they can be injected, taken nasally. They can be swallowed, so they come in a lot of different forms and, again, are highly addictive. Next slide, please. These are some types of opioids. We're just going to talk about fentanyl this evening, but just so you're generally familiar with what the types of opioids that exist. Heroin, of course, is illicit, and we also have illicit fentanyl, although it was initially created as a prescription or something to be medically supervised. Next slide, please. So fentanyl is a synthetic or man-made opioid. It is extremely potent. It's 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, 50 times stronger than heroin. What's really dangerous about it is not detectable when it's mixed with other substances. So you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it. And it's easily mixed into especially white powdery substances. We've seen a real uptick in meth, cocaine. Has anyone heard of xylazine or trank dope, zombie drug? It's an animal tranquilizer. Fentanyl is showing up mixed with xylazine. And again, it's used in a lot of fake pills, and that's where it's often most deceptive and most confusing for community members who may be getting pills online or from people they know and not being aware of what's inside of them. We also see it in Molly or MDMA and those types of drugs as well. So this day and age, we need to assume that fentanyl is in anything that is not prescribed to you by a doctor. Yes?
Why? I mean, is it cheaper?
Good question. Yes, that's exactly it. It's big business, and if somebody perishes here or there, it's the cost of doing business, because what it does, it's much cheaper to produce. And let's say it's being mixed with meth, for example. It's going to make that meth more potent for those who want the effects of meth. So it's going to be a more sought-after product from that dealer. And then it can stretch that supply. You don't need as much meth if you're mixing fentanyl in there. So it's all about business. Next slide, please. This is how much fentanyl can be fatal. So I always show it up there. It's very large. And then think about the tip of this pencil, less than 2 milligrams. We're talking, 10 to 15 grains of table salt, smaller than a raindrop. That is as much fentanyl as it's enough to kill a person. So very, very dangerous. And again, you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it. Next slide, please. So again, an area where fentanyl is really sneaking in are with fake pills. These are showing up at parties, online, very cheap to make. We have these clandestine labs where someone has a pill press, they're mixing ingredients in a smoothie maker and creating these pressed pills that look like the real thing. Very deceptive and very easy to get. On social media and things like that. I think a pretty important statistic is what our Drug Enforcement Administration seized in 2025. So 47 million fentanyl-laced pills and 10,000 pounds of fentanyl powder. That equates to 369 million fatal doses. That would kill every single person, more than every single person in the entire United States. And we're talking, that's not everything that's been seized. And I'm sure Craig can speak to, we've had a lot of seizures in this county. Just recently, I read in the paper today, there was a big bust. So it is out there and very dangerous. Next slide, please. So this is a little example of how deceptive these pills are. We have Xanax and Oxy here. By show of hands, we'll call it the dark blue side and the light blue side. By show of hands, who thinks the dark blue side are the real pills? Okay, so maybe fewer than half think the dark blue side are real. Okay, next slide, please, or advance. Really deceptive, and the first time I saw this, I definitely thought as well that the ones that look more perfect must be the real ones. Well, in fact, real pills are going down conveyor belts and being beat up, and they don't look exactly perfect. But imagine you're a youth and you see a pill that looks like that. That looks very real, very official. And that's why there are campaigns that say things like one pill can kill, because one pill really can kill. Next slide, please. I think a good way to have a conversation about how unpredictable pills can be are thinking about making a batch of chocolate chip cookies. If you're making cookies, unless you're separating the chocolate chips from the batter and you are placing them in each cookie, you don't know exactly how many chocolate chips are going to show up in each cookie when you've mixed that batter. It's the same thing when all kinds of ingredients are being mixed together to make these fake pills. Next slide, please. So when we talk about harm reduction, that is just what those words say, reducing risk. Wearing a seatbelt, that's harm reduction. Putting on sunscreen, harm reduction. Fentanyl test strips are a form of harm reduction. We are not trying to enable those who are substance use disordered or using illicit substances, nothing like that. But we are trying to destigmatize and normalize that this is happening, and we need to do things to help individuals make safer choices about what they're going to consume. So the important thing with fentanyl test strips, and we'll briefly go over how to use them, and I have ample supplies today, so please feel free to take some for loved ones, anyone you may know who might benefit from these products. I have naloxone as well. The important thing to note is that fentanyl test strips will let you know that there is fentanyl in what you're going to consume, but they won't tell you how much is in there. So it's not going to say, there's a fatal dose. You will just be notified by the test strip that there is fentanyl in what you're going to consume. And it works with all different types of drug types, so things you might inject, things you might snort, things you might swallow. And you need to be intentional. Someone needs to really want to make sure fentanyl is not in what they're going to consume. It's also very important to test everything you're going to consume because, again, one pill can kill. So there might be that batch of 5 pills. 4 of them might have a fatal dose. 1 might be fine, but it's really important to be that intentional and test everything you're going to consume. Next slide, please. So we've made some new instructions, which I brought in both Spanish and English, but the typical test strip does have instructions on the back. And in terms of how to use it, you can, if you have a smartphone, even go to the website of this. We get these free from the state. And it is so sophisticated that you can put in what you're going to test. I have tar heroin. I would like to test that, for example. And it will walk you through how to do that. And then, for example, if you're using water to test, so we'll talk about that in a second, it will even explain to you how to re-dehydrate what you are going to consume because you've now gotten it wet. So pretty sophisticated in terms of what these test strips and this manufacturer will help the consumer do. So what happens is you decide how much you want to test. So let's use the example. This is where I'm going to set this down for a second. Sorry. Usually have a little different setup. The tester fell out. Okay, we'll just go with it. Let's say we have a fake pill, and you're going to mash up that pill. You're going to take the scooper, and everything here comes within this kit. It's one-time use only. You're going to mash that pill up, stir up that pill to distribute the fentanyl if it's in fact in there. Decide how many scoops you want to to test, I'm sorry. We did have some issues initially with individuals saying, well, I don't want to test all my supply. And the state listened, and these were remade. They used to be where you had to test a minimum of 5 scoops. Now you can test as little as 1 scoop, all the way up until I think the new ones go to 8 or 10. So you decide how many scoops you're going to test. You then fill up this side as a vial, and you fill up that vial. I might have, these aren't my typical slides. No, sorry. You can go back. You're going to fill up the corresponding amount of water to how many scoops. So for example, you'll fill up 5 to the number 5 with water. You put in those scoops of the product, you stir it up, and then there's a test strip, which fell out, that you stick within that. You hold it in there for 10 seconds. You take that test strip out, you lay it on a flat, non-absorbent surface, and you check it after 5 minutes. And again, it will alert you to fentanyl being in there. 2 lines, a little counterintuitive to most testing that we do, which would be a COVID test or a pregnancy test, where 2 lines typically mean positive. Here, 2 lines mean negative, no fentanyl, N-O, 2 letters, 2 lines. Next slide, please.
When you talk about a scoop, are you talking about like a scoop?
This is the scooper. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. Usually I'm in a smaller, a little more intimate setting. So we're talking a very, very tiny scooper. And everything's all in one. Another harm reduction tool we have in the community is naloxone. Maybe you've heard it called Narcan, which is the brand name. And it basically is a medication that acts as an opioid antagonist. It's a bully. It knocks those opioids off of the receptors, and it's very safe, very effective, but it only works if an opioid is in someone's system. So fentanyl, again, is a synthetic opioid. It will only work if someone's overdosing from an opioid. It will not work, let's say, if someone's overdosing from alcohol. But it will also not harm them. So it is completely safe to use, err on the side of caution, and it really can save a life. Next slide, please. Next slide. So in terms of overdose, it can happen very quickly, especially when opioids are involved. It basically depresses someone's respiration. Their breathing slows down to the point of not breathing. And especially we see in populations who, let's say, have just been incarcerated, had a tolerance prior to going in, then had a period of not using, or have been in treatment or things like that, and then their tolerance is low. If they then go and use a substance again, they're at a greater likelihood of overdose. So we really need to watch individuals in those types of conditions. Next slide, please. Most important is to know the signs of an opioid overdose. A telltale sign that someone has an opioid in their system, their pupils are going to be very tiny. Their body's going to be super limp. They're going to be unable to talk. Their skin, their nails, their lips are going to be pale, gray, bluish. Their skin might be cold or clammy. Again, their breathing is going to be very slow or is going to have stopped altogether. They're going to be extremely unresponsive. So we're talking, different than somebody where you can kind of shake them and say, hey, are you okay? And they sort of kind of come out of it. They're going to be very unresponsive. You might want to do something called a sternum rub that would bring someone out of it if it wasn't this type of overdose, or you can squeeze right here, which is uncomfortable. And that's what you're going to see. And then also the person might be making some sort of snoring or gurgling type noises. Next slide, please. So again, responding, you're going to shake that person, you're going to do those things. You're always going to call 911 first, because someone will need medical attention if they're overdosing from an opioid. They will need more than just the naloxone that you may have on hand. Next slide, please. In terms of using naloxone, very, very easy to use. It's a nasal spray, so it's just like an allergy medication. You're going to make sure someone's airway is clear, because often if someone's overdosing from an opioid, they're going to be very slumped over, so cutting off their own airway. You're going to make sure that their air passage is clear, put this up their nostril, and then depress the plunger. It will lock in. This one's a sample, but it will lock in place. And you're going to put all that medication up their nostril. What's really difficult is waiting. It takes about 2 minutes to take effect, which can seem like an eternity if you are waiting for someone to respond to it. But they're going to come out of it if they're having an opioid overdose in about 2 minutes. They also can overdose all over again, and that's why it's so important that emergency services come. Someone can overdose again. This can wear off in 20 to 90 minutes, depending on someone's tolerance, their body weight, how much is in their system. So very important to not just have that person come out of it and walk away, because this could happen all over again. And someone's also going to come out of it feeling like they're potentially in withdrawal, so they're not going to necessarily be happy. Sometimes someone is very emotional, very grateful. They realize what just happened, and sometimes they feel awful and they're combative and angry that you administered this. So also, if you don't know the person, or even if you do, you could take a little step back if you're administering this. Next slide, please. Some other ways to really decrease risk of overdose: mixing drugs and alcohol. Always a dangerous combination, really increases that risk. Again, know the signs and carry naloxone. A lot of people will just have this in their purses or in their car. It's really important and a great tool. Next slide, please. A few other things. We have a Never Use Alone hotline, which is a pretty incredible resource. So you can't administer this to yourself. So if someone is going to use a substance and is alone, you can call that number. You give the operator your details, and they know where you are. So if they need to call medical services, they can do that. We have a 24/7 access line through Ventura County Behavioral Health. And then I always like to kind of toss in medication safety and securing medicines that you might have, opioids or otherwise, at home. It is not unheard of that people go into one another's bathrooms and sometimes look in their medicine cabinets, or youth do that and bring prescriptions to parties. it's really important to lock up medications and to encourage everyone to not take anything that is not prescribed to you. Don't share medications. Only treat those prescribed by your own doctor, picked up from a legitimate pharmacy, as safe to consume. Next slide, please. Sometimes people are hesitant, and Craig can speak to this more, but hesitant to call 911 because they're partying, they're using drugs, they're afraid of getting in trouble. We have a Good Samaritan law. Very important. We want to encourage people to save a life. So the person calling 911 is protected, the person overdosing is protected. Others, and you can correct me if I'm saying any of this incorrectly, those at the scene are protected. All bets are off if it's clear that they're there to sell drugs and manufacture, or if someone's on probation or parole. But otherwise, we want to encourage people to save a life and call for medical attention. Do you want to?
Totally right. We recognize the spirit of it, so sometimes the probation and parole thing will get overlooked, but other bigger crimes, like you said, that happens all the time where we don't do that. And the only tough thing about that is I have had it where we've Narcan someone, and he's like I was giving CPR to you, me and my buddy, for 4 minutes. We got you Narcan, we have you on your feet. He didn't know what happened, and he wanted to walk away, and we couldn't stop him, so I'm just following him, waiting for him to fall over again.
Yep.
It also works on dogs. We had a dog eat a
Really?
We're like, oh, it can't hurt.
Wow, that's good to know. I mean, it's not good, but yes. Wow. Very, very effective. And again, we really want to normalize the use of this. Yes, please.
So I was confused when you were saying, does it work with fentanyl or not?
It does work with fentanyl, so anything that is in the opioid family, but only works for an opioid. I have it for free. So I have it for free. You can get it free at many locations throughout the county, but it's now over the counter. You can get it without a prescription if you are prescribed opioids. So very, very useful, yes.
I got some from the harm reduction kids that are out at the table.
Yes, harm reduction, 805 harm reduction, yes, they're great.
But I keep it in my car. Is there like a temperature that you should store?
It's not ideal to have it in like direct sunlight. If you keep it in your trunk or in your glove compartment, we don't live in the hottest place, so it's not terrible. I think just like any medication, like kind of try to keep it out of the sun, but many people keep it in their car because they want to have it. It also is good, testing has been done, it's good for 3 years after expiration. The efficacy might have, go down a smidge, but it will still work for 3 years after expiration. Yes, please.
My question was about the expiration.
Okay, great. So next slide, please. The last thing I want to talk about is Kratom. Has anyone heard of Kratom? Okay. Correct. So prior to very recently, you'd see Kratom. It wouldn't necessarily be advertised as Kratom, but you would see it at gas stations, smoke shops for sure, mini marts. There's been no age limit, and it's in a lot of products. It is an atypical opioid. It comes from a plant in Asia. We don't typically see it in that natural form. Sometimes it will be a synthetic version, or it'll be adulterated in some way and called 7-OH or mitragynine in different products. But it has all the same effects that an opioid would. It's addictive as well, and we've had fatal overdoses from Kratom. So thankfully, it is now illegal to sell this. There have been some like fire sales at some of our smoke shops to get it off the shelves because it has been that prevalent and that marketable. People really have sought this product, but we are trying to get it off the shelves, and naloxone works for Kratom as well. So enforcement our county is in the early phases of enforcement, but right now all all shops that carry it have been notified it needs to be completely removed from shelves. Next slide, please. So these are just some images to give you an idea of products that have kratom in them. All different forms, you know, beverage type things. There have been energy drinks that have kratom in it, as well as capsules and other products. And it's been touted as a very healthy, you know, kind of almost like a natural product to help, that can be a stimulant or a depressant and serves all kinds of purposes. But it has been increasingly more and more dangerous. And that's it. I did have a body cam video I was going to show you, but it was too large. The file was too large. But I do like to show that. It was a triple overdose in Oakview that the Sheriff's Department was called on. And that's not, you could probably attest to that, not that common that there are 3. Usually there's 1, maybe 2. You've had that many? Wow. Wow.
It happens, and it happens quick.
With very quick.
Everyone who has been breathing that I've used that on, which is, I've probably used that 18 times,
Wow.
has come back, including 2 that weren't breathing, where we put the mask over and like started CPR after putting that in their nose and forced the air through them and got them going again.
Yeah. It's very, yes. Yeah, so the body cam footage I was going to show you, thankfully all those people did survive. The sheriff was able to administer naloxone, and but when I first started learning about this, I thought an overdose would look more active. You know, you're foaming at the mouth, you're seizing kind of thing. It's incredibly passive. Someone just looks completely unresponsive. And one of the women in that body cam footage is making those kind of like those kind of gurgling noises, which again can be one of the telltale signs. So any more questions? Well, the illicit fentanyl that we're seeing is typically produced abroad. So the precursor chemicals often come from China, and they're sent to Mexico, and most of the illicit fentanyl we're seeing is a combination of those precursor chemicals and labs in Mexico. Yes, please.
Is this dangerous also for first responders to be exposed to this when?
So it actually, there's a really good study that UC Davis did. So a while back, we heard a lot about first responders going down being with fentanyl exposure. They actually studied a lot of it, and they were panic attacks. So, which is very understandable, because before we've known enough about this. But it's, I'll send, I can find the link, but if you Google UC Davis study on airborne fentanyl or first responders, there's a really good snippet from a doctor about that. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry about clunking this.
Yeah, no, you're good. We will make sure, as always, to send out the slides afterwards. And please, if there's any resources or anything that you'd like that article, send it over, and we can send it out to the community council.
And I'm going to stick around. I have fentanyl test strips and Narcan to give out to anyone who wants
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. All right. Well, we are at that time of, thank you so much. We're at that time. About a year ago, we added to the community council kind of agenda flow. We've sat, we've listened, we've done really good listening, and now we wanted to open it up and see if anyone has any public comment, if there's anything on your mind, if there's anything in particular that brought you here today, or that you've seen online or at city council. if there's anything, please just take this moment to raise your hand and we can dedicate a few minutes to just public comment, and then I can close this out with a couple updates, and then we can enjoy our, Wednesday night? Mark.
I was out of town yesterday enjoying the early Father's Day and Father's birthday and so forth, so I understand there was a city council meeting last night. Is there anything interesting that happened last night?
What's happening? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Am I tall enough? Oh, there we go. There we go. Yes, so there was a city council. I listened to it on the train to LA this morning. So last night, the city council decided to eliminate the design review committee, which is a group that has been reviewing development projects in the city, and so they selected 4 to 3 to eliminate that. And then on the other hand, the Historic Preservation Committee, they decreased the scope of that committee. So definitely a big impact in how developments will be proceeding through the process at the city moving forward. Yes, Matt. No, it just means that the responsibilities, so sorry, and I should have emphasized that the elimination of the design review committee, the responsibilities will fold into the planning commission. Gotcha. So it more so means that the planning commission now has larger responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And previously, there were no qualifications to the planning commission, and now I believe that they're going to look at incorporating some qualifications that the design review committee may or may, like, architectural design qualifications, to put that on the qualification criteria for the planning commission. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else? Yeah.
I have a special request. Carmen,
Yes.
you did such a great job.
Thank you.
But I was just wondering, is it possible to shoot out our membership or our community council meetings a little earlier?
Yes.
Monday morning?
Yes.
We fell down on that one a little bit this morning. I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just because I know we're so super busy.
We'll try to be very. We'll try to be the Michael McDonald city clerk and give you a good week advance in the future. Yeah, of course.
At least try to pencil it in.
Yeah.
People have more response.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. Anything else on anyone's mind? Thanks, Barb. Lovely. Okay, well, with that, I will provide some updates on the Montalvo Area Community Council Board. And some of you may know that last year, and kind of historically, the board would always meet on the, third Tuesday of every month, and then towards the end of third Tuesday every month, every 3 months. So we would meet 4 times a year, and then towards the end of last year, myself and the board decided we wanted to meet more often. We felt like we really wanted to keep a good rhythm to our meetings, because so much is happening in the city in any given time. There's so much that happens at city council meetings, and folks need to be appraised and know kind of what's happening at City Hall. So we changed it to the second Wednesday of every month, every other month. Nice, thanks, Cassie. But we have some exciting developments. We have an election in November, and myself and Vice Chair James Lowry are both running for City Council. So our board is down from 5 to 3. And Mark, Betsy, and Cassie are wonderful, but that's a huge responsibility. And so what we are deciding to do in lieu of putting that weight on them is we are going to cancel the August meeting for the Montalvo Area Community Council. We will make sure to keep everyone informed via the newsletter, on social media. So definitely, like, we'll keep you informed on what's happening in the city. And then October 14th will be the candidate forum. So stay tuned for that.
October 14th, that's the one where all the candidates are here.
Yes.
We do the live streaming, all the questions,
All the candidates, apparently we are up to 6 for District 6. It might be 8. We're going to treat it like a going 8, going 8, going 9. Does anyone here want to run for city council? You can. Let's get to double digits. Jokes. But yes, so the formal, I mean, truly, if you want to, go. It is, the nomination period will open July 13th and end August 7th. So let Michael McDonald know. But yes, so that is the update as far as the board goes. So we'll keep you informed, but otherwise we'll see you in October.
That means we're looking for people.
Yes, and yes, yeah, of course, yeah. So thanks, Cassie. So there, even right now, there are technically two openings on the board already. And so please, if you have the availability and the interest and you would like to hang out with us, yeah, just contact us and we can chat about it. Lovely. Have a good Wednesday night, a good week, and a nice summer. Thanks, everyone.